time is here. Shane and I'll be loud and clear. Pacific vibes, we bring the heat. AI agents can't be beat. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Solving problems, we do it live. Stay informed, it's a vibe. Building agents that work for you. Making moves, we see it through. Every week, a brand new show. Tag along and watch your knowledge grow. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Answering questions, we arrive. Every Monday, come alive. We want reviews, but only if it's a 5. We share the drama, we got the drive. Stay in the loop, it's the place to be. Shane and I'll be setting you free. Tune in Mondays, make your day. From the news to the problem solved. AI world, get involved.
Every week in AI, something insane happens.
And there's so much drama. Every Monday, we break it down live.
We do the news, we bring on guests, building in the space.
And we go deep into the stuff that actually matters.
Agents Hour, every Monday, noon Pacific.
Follow. Don't miss it. Peace.
This is Agents Hour with Shane Thomas and Abi Iyer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Agents Hour. It's Monday. It's right around noon Pacific time. I'm here, like I am every week. I'm Shane. I'm here with my co-founder, Abi. What's up, dude?
What's up, dude?
Where are you calling in from? You got an interesting new look this week.
Yeah. So I was able to make some friends at a nice company called Morning Brew, and I'm here at their offices shooting in one of their studios today.
Nice. It's good to have friends with nice studios.
I know. We're starting to collect friends with all the studios, right?
Okay. Agents Hour coming to a studio near you.
Yeah, exactly. I met, so a friend of the show, Rosh, used to work at Morning Brew. He connected me with the head of all the studio stuff here named Daniel. So thank you, Daniel, for letting me shoot today here at the studio.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're in New York City. What are you doing in New York?
You know, it's here to test a theory that, New York and other cities are 3 to 6 months behind in AI. And I think I can confirm after a week now, that I do think that, the companies here are behind on AI. Many are not using Claude Code or things like that. They're still like in their IDEs with Cursor. And it just feels like how, Shane and I went through this transformation as well, too, where, people here still care about reading the code, right? And we had that same kind of feeling. Eventually, you start giving that away and you start getting into CLI tools. And then people's model selections are a little bit dated. No one's on the latest and greatest. No one's really experimenting with Chinese models. So it's pretty much frontier model only. But there's another part of the theory, and I'll keep this short. People here are having the time of their lives. So whether they're AI pilled or not, every day is a fun day here in New York City. So I think maybe that's the trade-off they all make.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend that I ran into. He's a developer. He's a pretty good web developer, but I mentioned, it came up in a conversation that my other friend had built this registration app, and he was wondering how he built it. And I said, oh, he used Lovable, I'm sure. And he immediately said, what's Lovable? And this is a guy who's a developer. Didn't know Lovable, Replit, has never used Claude Code, is using Cursor, but only because I turned him onto it about 9 to 12 months ago when we were still heavy in our, probably a year ago at this point. And so I do think that we do live in a bubble. If you're watching this, you're probably in a bubble as well, where you are probably fairly AI pilled, and a lot of the world is not there.
Yeah.
They're just not there yet, but they probably will be. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. We're all very early still, if you look at other parts of the world here. So not everything is at San Francisco, of course, but it does help to be part of this inner bubble, learning every day. So you get to come to different places and teach people things, and you look like super impressive, even though it's just a normal day in our life.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're early. 100% agree with that. I am excited though because in probably like 4 days, you and I get to hang out again.
Yeah, we're
In
going on a
person.
trip.
So we are, we're not going to tell exactly where we're going to be because we don't want, people to randomly show up. But we are going to be, I'm taking Abby. So I live in South Dakota, or I've spent a lot of my time in San Francisco, of course, but I'm from South Dakota. I'm taking Abby to the Black Hills. We're going to see Mount Rushmore. We're going to go hiking. We're going to do some outdoor things. It's going to be sweet.
We're going to touch grass, proverbially.
We're going to spend Memorial Day definitely touching grass and having a good time, riding some UTVs, hopefully. And yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
So we also, a couple weeks back when we were in San Francisco, you spoke at Camp AI.
Yep.
And they finally got the pictures back to us. So I thought it'd be fun to look at some of the pictures from that event. We talked about it just a little bit last week, but it was a great event. Yeah, some great speakers. Abby, you were on the panel, and just it's always one of those events where, yeah, this was awesome. You had, I don't know, their little campfire plushie thing that we were holding, so that was a fun. Had the 3 founders of Mastra, Sam's in this one as well, so we were all there. Abby was saying something insightful, and I was just engrossed. Clearly, I don't know what was I thinking in this picture.
You were thinking, whose chair is gonna break?
Yeah, I look really either deep in thought or I don't know.
Or you're pissed off at something that Paul said. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of, it was a good night. Always fun to go to those meetups, especially ones that are well produced like that.
Yeah. They're gonna have camp all over the world now too. There's gonna be one in Japan, New York, Europe.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
check it out.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, they're doing it across the U.S. too. I think in a couple different cities. So coming to a city near you for sure. And one last thing that I thought, and we'll talk about this a little bit more on the news, but I saw, Pete Steinberger had a post that went viral, and he is, we'll call him the Open Claw guy. And he just posted a tweet, and I'll share it real quick, because I think it was just people were a little surprised when they saw it. Let me share. So it seems pretty harmless. The latest Codex bar update renders API costs way nicer. And then you look at his API costs, and in the last 30 days, he spent $1.3 million on tokens. What?
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 $1.3 million in 30 days? This is one dude.
What?
That's why he had to get acquired by OpenAI. He couldn't front his
right?
bill anymore.
People were freaking out about this
Yeah,
too.
it went just wild. He had a response as well, and which we'll if you're sticking around, we'll talk about it more in the news. We'll talk about his response as well, but it's just wild. And obviously, it's all about like OpenClaw automation. There's all this stuff that's running right to keep this thing going, but it is just wild.
Imagine spending 1.3 million in 30 days to do an open source project, right? Like at that cost, no one would do it. You'd need some funding, of course. Well, I guess he has it, but
yeah, now OpenAI is fronting the bill, right?
yeah. So, hey, there's always a subsidy somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta find yours. But we do have a really great show today. So today we're going to be bringing on Ismail from Super Agent. We're going to talk about Security Corner. So we haven't done a Security Corner in a while. We wanted to bring it back. I think, we've often had Allie in the past. She'll be on the show again. She's no stranger. She'll come back. But I think it's definitely time. Security is becoming even more of a hot topic. Attacks are happening. We're going to talk about security and what it means for open source projects and what it might mean for you. We're bringing on a friend from our YC batch, actually. So Isabelle from Cedar, talking about Cedar Copilot and what they're building over there. So excited to see a demo, talk about that project. And then we, of course, have the news, the things we do every week. Talk about the drama, talk about all the things that are happening, keep you up to date. So if you're watching this and you want to know what's happening and can't follow every tweet, we'll do that for you. And we'll try to bring all the important stuff right into your podcast feed or live stream or however you're watching this.
I'm excited for the show.
And with that, why don't we bring on our first guest?
Hey guys.
And
Welcome.
with us,
Thank you.
we have Ismail from Super Agent. So Ismail, please tell us a little bit. I know you've been on the show before. First, what's Super Agent? And then we'll talk about Security Corner.
Yeah, so Super Agent helps companies stay secure and safe, especially now when you have attackers that leverage the same AIs we do to attack prone and basically exfiltrate a bunch of data, bunch of other stuff that they can use, and then ask for money from big companies to get that data back. There was just in the news today, I think, about what was the company that got it was Kibana? No, yeah. Some huge company that they just penetrated and are asking for a lot of money. Kibana, I think it was. I'm not sure.
Dang.
You have to check that out. It was all over X. But it's interesting because you spoke about Pete. I read a post that he was running like 10 parallel codex agents just to check for security vulnerabilities and bugs in his code. And he was doing the same thing with, I think it was Vercel's new framework for doing AppSec called DeepSec. So I've been doing a lot of that as well, and it consumes a lot of tokens. So I could definitely see him having that bill monthly, actually. So that makes total sense when you run all of those automations on your repository, right? And I think that it speaks a lot to how people will have to work in the future, specifically if you have something that's public, right? Because when you have your code public, every bug that you've ever had in that code is public. And previously, it took an army of attackers and weeks of work to actually prone and find those bugs and then chain them together in a way where you could actually attack something. But nowadays, it takes an hour. And you don't even need to use frontier models. You don't even need to have access to Mythos or GPT 5.5. You can use a smaller open source model, Kimi 2.6. It does the job as well as any of these other models, given that you know what you're doing, right? And most people that are out there trying to actually do harm know what they're doing. So that's a reality. And I'm going to be talking a bit about, what we see and what type of attack vectors we see when we are working with our customers, and also a bit about what you can do as a developer or an open source maintainer or a security person in general. So what we see today, and I think this was also pretty obvious last week when we had this mini Shad Hulud attack that basically took over hundreds of packages across npm, pypi, etc., right? So those attacks usually start, it's either that someone in an organization or a contributor or someone with access to a project, privileges in a project gets basically phished. That's the I think the thing that many people don't think about is that most of these attacks start by somebody getting phished, either through an email. It could be through a DM on X. I've received a bunch of those. Hey, I'm from TechCrunch. I want to write an article. Here's my cal.com link. You press on it, and all of a sudden, you're hacked. And then it escalates from there. So phishing is a very typical scenario where these attacks start. And I think we see that as well in the type of attacks where they have access to tokens that usually a person wouldn't have access to, right? Where did they get that access? It's not stored in the code. So it's a very common pattern that we see. The problem with phishing is that it's very hard to defend against because they are getting extremely sophisticated. Previously, you could look at the domain of the email sender, right? And you could figure it out, or if something was off, you would get a feel for it. Nowadays, you don't even see that. And I think that, these email providers have basically dropped the ball on, trying to filter out those type of emails. And so you should be very, very cautious when getting emails from either NPM, GitHub, or any of these services where you have these credentials that you don't want to get exposed, right? So that's the first primary thing that I think that people miss in the age of AI. They think that the AI just figures out how to get the token. And in some cases that is true, but in most cases I would guess that it's just phishing, right? And it's very hard to protect against. I myself have a small bot that I run on as a Chrome extension in my Gmail that just runs a secondary check on all the outbound links in an email I get, just to get a feel for, is this sus in any way, right? It doesn't catch everything, but it works quite well, especially for those emails that actually get through the spam filter. So that's one thing that I recommend highly. Build something that can, just check, your emails twice before actually clicking on anything. The second attack vector we see is projects that have outdated CI/CD workflows. And, before AI, that wasn't that big of a problem because you needed to create a very, sophisticated attack in order to exfiltrate anything. But nowadays, people run a bunch of agents in their CI/CDs as well, right? Which then you need to be extra careful exactly what type of code you actually have in those workflows. So that's something that we see a lot as well, where people just have misconfigured repositories or CI/CD workflows where these tokens can either leak or where the attacker can chain different vulnerabilities together in order to exfiltrate something and then publish a malicious version of some package somewhere, right? And usually I would say that they don't start off with these huge packages. They start off with something much smaller that's used across the supply chain without anybody really thinking about it. Some dependency you might have somewhere that you just take for granted is secure, right? And it's maintained by some dude that does it once a month, and then that ships an update. You install the update, and then you have that, and then the whole supply chain has it. Depending on it's just exponential depending on how many downloads a certain supply chain package has, right? So in that case, I would do, my recommendation is doing two very specific things. First is to always, run a check on your CI/CD workflows. Always try to, stay updated with, what's best practice and what's not best practice. And there are many ways of doing that. You can download the skill that is specifically for CI/CD security that you can use. You can, run Codex or Claude Code on it or whatever. But having that as a routine or a job that gets done every now and then, I think is very helpful. And the second thing is, of course, like dependencies, right? I think that many people still rely on npm as their package manager. I think that those people need to start thinking about migrating to other package managers, such as PMPM, where you have some level of configuration on, when you can update, a dependency, how that update actually is done, and also what type of like exotic lifecycle hooks you want to allow into your project, right? I see a comment and then we get hacked by the skill. Yeah, that's also an issue. You should definitely, be wary about the skills you use as well, especially if you're running agents in the CI/CD workflow. I wouldn't be like as worried about that if I'm running it through my Claude Code or something like that, because Claude Code has pretty good guardrails built in. They've worked a lot, and Codex as well, with those type of things. But it can happen, and you need to be wary about what you're doing and how your setup looks like, what environment variables you have exposed in your systems. That could be locally, that could be in the cloud, that could be in a GitHub action. You need to understand that people are actively using this technology to try to figure out what type of bugs you have, how they can chain them together in order to exploit, a vulnerability. And I think that's like the thing that people need to really, take into account and build workflows around. And I think Pete, go
No, I
ahead.
was gonna say, so one thing that I've seen some of our users do, and I just want to know your perspective on this, but I do know some of the larger organizations that use Mastra and of course other packages. They have some kind of timeline where they won't actually even install a package unless it's X number of days old, because the thought being that if there was a massive security issue, it would be caught within the first day or two or three. And as long as they have that policy in place, it gives them some level. Of course, nothing's perfect, but maybe it gives them a slight bit of protection from the very blatant things that might slip through. I guess, what are your thoughts on organizations adopting something like that? Yeah,
I think it's good. I think it's good. I think it's a shame that you have to do that, and I think that it's good for the organization, but I think it's detrimental to open source. Because what will end up happening is that people will never, if you're a new person on the block trying to get your open source project to scale. I think Amjad from Replit posted this on LinkedIn a while back. I don't think people are willing to install that package anymore. And I think that in 6 months, nobody, especially not enterprises, will be, keen on installing new packages. And what ends up happening is that you get this Darwinian GitHub where only the larger, packages that have the security posture and have the, the millions of dollars to spend on tokens to secure their project, only those will survive in the end. And that's really bad for many reasons. And I think that that's a that's a threat to open source, unfortunately. But from an enterprise perspective, I think that it's a good thing to do. And I think PMPM has this built in, right? So you can just enable that setting and go from there, more or less.
Why do you think? Why do you think I would say the most popular attack pattern is the supply chain attack these days? Why do you think that is?
Because because it's easier to hack a person than it is to hack a computer, and hacking a person it's just a phishing email away, right? And then you have access, and then the actual attack itself is usually very simple. It's just a lifecycle hook somewhere, a post-install script, a pre-install script. So all of these scanners that you see, socket.dev and similar, they catch them, instantly, more or less, because they are so, futile. These or not futile, but they're so simple, the attacks. It's just a post install script to some other script that then does something that it shouldn't do, right? Something they call an exotic lifecycle hook. It's the simplest way to do it. We see other ways people do it as well, and that is more complex, where they actually try to find bugs in the code without having to update anything, right? Find bugs in the code, and then chain those bugs together basically in order to get a full exfiltration path in a older version of, let's say, some supply chain package that has 100 millions of downloads a week. And so that's also a way to do it, and that one is much harder to catch. So I think from a maintainer perspective, you need to adopt these tools. You need to have some kind of leverage against these attackers. The problem is the cost, and that's where I see a discrepancy between the attacker and the defender, right? And not everyone has $1 million to put in different type of automation workflows, right? And so that becomes a huge problem for open source.
If we keep getting these types of attacks, I think, especially bigger companies that have employees, let's say, they'll stop using open source. They'll just have Claude rewrite these modules themselves. There is no supply chain risk if it's your own supply chain, and maybe that's another vector for them. But if, big companies keep getting exploited and then taken hostage, all of us open source developers are screwed, because no one will trust us at all. Or they'll just go rebuild it from scratch, point Claude at our repos, and then just rewrite all of them.
Yeah. And the challenge there is also, this is actually good for model companies, because then everyone is responsible for, one, generating their own dependencies, and then security checking their own dependencies. And they're burning lots of tokens to basically reuse something that already exists, and you could have already security checked, but if the supply chain is the weakness, it's hard to prevent against that. It's harder to prevent against that attack, maybe, because as you said, you're one human weakness away, one clicked email away from potentially compromising, a large supply chain.
Yeah, and everything that we use was built on open source, everything. So it's a real shame that the thing that actually created the thing is destroying the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just so meta, the whole thing. But I think that what Shane is saying is already happening. You already see people, rewriting, not only because of security reasons, but also performance reasons. If you can write, some kind of utility package you have and make it twice as fast, and that could save you, I don't know how much of compute, why not, right? But it becomes a huge issue, I think, and I think that nobody understands what that will mean in the future for open software. It will basically be a cataclysmic event for open software. And I think the only way to solve it is for open source to come together and find a way where we can help each other, keep each other's supply chain secure, and help each other with, compute if that's necessary, or any other means where we can actually make our security posture as a whole better. Because it won't be enough to just have one, maintainer do it. You need the whole supply chain to do it in order for it to work. And I'm a bit pissed actually, because, I would expect companies such as GitHub or companies such as NPM that have these registries to do more. They have money, they are huge companies, and they have profited from open source for a very long time. And I feel like it's time for them to step up, not by giving tokens to people, but by just making their pipelines more secure, right? Do better checks on stuff that comes in. And so I feel like they have a lot of things to work on as well. But it seems like they're on manager mode or something. I'm not sure what's going on in these organizations, but it will be a huge problem for open source, definitely.
Yeah. Do you have any other, tips that people, if they're, whether you're managing an open source project or whether you're using open source, things that you should look out
Yeah,
for that we didn't already
yeah.
cover?
So I think that what you definitely should do is that if you're at least if you're a JavaScript developer, you should definitely use PMPM. You should definitely look at the settings that the new PMPM version that came out just a week ago or so has when it comes to updating your dependencies. That is a must. It costs nothing. Just do it, right? It costs 10 minutes of your time to have Claude migrate from npm to PMPM. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is that I would enable all of the security scanning software that's out there. So you have CodeQL from GitHub. It's free if you're open source. You have Dependabot, you have Socket, or similar apps that you can run on your GitHub repository. SuperAgent has one as well, and you can use that. It's free. All of them are free for open source, so it won't cost you anything. That's one thing I would do. I would also look into using, similar to how you use Codex when you write code, I would also look into using some agent that is actually an offensive adversarial tester of your code, not just a scanner, because scanning usually doesn't chain different bugs together in order to exploit it, right? But looking into those kind of agents as well, those are usually not free, but I think it makes a lot of sense if you want to do a mini Steve Steinberger setup for yourself where it doesn't cost you $1 million, but it keeps your stuff secure from the most obvious bugs that could be exploited in a chain, right? That's something that I would do as well. We have some of that at SuperAgent. You can just go to superagent.sh and download the stuff for free on your repository. One more thing that I would do is that I would be very cautious with who is contributing to my repository. And there are some solutions to that as well. There's something called Vouch, which you can use. It's open source, where you basically vouch a couple of contributors that you trust, that you have vetted yourself, and they can contribute, and the rest can't, more or less, or they can, but they're not vouched for. So you see that in your repository. And also, I think that there are a couple of other apps like that as well, where you can have a contributor trust profile, more or less, in order to not get a good PR the first time, but then a malicious one the second time that you miss, or that Codex misses, or whatever. So that would be my top 5 or 4, I don't remember how many it was, but tips to maintainers.
Yeah, those are really good. Really good. I've seen some projects just turn off PRs from outside contributors. You can only, open up issues, which once again is not great for open source software, but whatever.
We all started off somewhere, right? We all started
Yeah.
off contributing to the projects we use and we love. Now we can't do that anymore because we are not vouched for.
Yeah.
That again becomes like a thing that will be detrimental to open source. So there are a bunch of different attacks happening on open source right now. It's from the maintainer side. It's even from, I would say, some security companies are attacking open source as well, because they have these intelligence feeds that are open source, where you see all the vulnerabilities in all the packages. And if I haven't updated, maybe I missed the feed or something, right? Then I'm vulnerable, and that's exposed to any attacker out there. So even that is a problem for maintainers. So they're getting attacked from everywhere. Yeah, so it's a hard thing right now.
Yeah, I think we are definitely in a bit of a battle. I think security is it's always been hard. I think it's not becoming easier with AI, because attackers have the same tools that we have, and they are able to use it to potentially take advantage of certain vulnerabilities, whether it's supply chain or otherwise. But Ismail, thanks for coming on to Agents Hour, having a good discussion. What's the best way for folks to stay in touch, see what you're all doing over at Super Agent?
Superagent.sh or superagent-AI on X. Feel free to reach out. That's the best way.
All right, Ismail. Appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, guys. Let's do
dude.
it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Like, share, and subscribe.
And follow us on X.
And tell your friends.
And their friends.
I mean, we're not begging.
Well, maybe a little bit.
Subscribe to Agents Hour every Monday, noon Pacific.
All right, I have to post this. Sebastian said, "Be right back, gaslighting Moltbook into a free pen test." I thought that was pretty funny. Sebastian, let us know when you're back. Let us know if it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, security's scary these days, but we must press on. And I'm excited about our next guest. So let's go ahead and bring on Isabelle from Cedar. All right.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
So we are here with Isabelle from Cedar. We're going to learn a little bit about Cedar Copilot, which is the AI native superhuman for sales. So excited to talk a bit about that. Of course, Isabelle, we obviously have met each other when we were in YC together. So excited to, I guess, catch up.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me on the webinar, guys. How's it been going so far?
Fun.
It's been going well. We just talked with Super Agent about some security stuff in open source, and now I'm excited to learn a little bit about what you're all doing. So can you tell me a little bit, what is Cedar Copilot? What are you working on? And who are the users? Like, what is the problem that you're trying to help people solve?
For sure, yeah. I'm Isabelle, co-founder of Cedar, and we basically help both account executives, so people doing sales, and founders doing sales from companies like Cursor, Mintlify, Greptile, and Warp, and recently Mastra. And we basically help them execute and build and execute self-improving playbooks to help move deals from demo to close more effectively. So what that means is we're like squarely middle of funnel, so basically helping you from the point where you take that first demo all the way till you close a deal. And the way that we do that is we'll connect to kind of all of the places where you're talking to your prospects. So whether that's meetings, emails, Slack, your CRM, we handle all the data management in the middle. We put it where it needs to go. And then on top of that, we'll run all your personalized agents that are all backed by master agents that basically will do things like draft follow-ups, plan multi-threading, coach you on deals, like hand off to engineering, all of these different things, so that you get to stay perfectly on top of your pipeline and make sure that no deal is slipping through the cracks when you get kind of a high volume of deals in the pipeline. And kind of like at a team level, when we're operating in multiplayer mode, we're basically giving you a data layer and a workspace that helps you kind of build a closed loop between the data that's going through your sales pipeline, like your meetings, and then your actual process. So what that means is like, for founders who are like super busy and you don't have time to like make collateral, you don't have time to like build out a very formalized sales playbook, we basically will extract all of these things for you and kind of let you put those into agents that help you automate parts of your sales process, like meeting prep or collateral creation and certain things like that. I'd love to kind of show you guys a little bit around Cedar.
Yeah, we'd love to see a demo, and then we do have a technical audience, so I'm sure we're going to ask, you don't have to show us all behind the curtain, but would love to talk a little bit about how it's built and how people who are potentially thinking about building agents of their own might attack the problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we've been powered by Mastra from day one, so definitely have a lot to share there. But yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Um, Yeah, so what you kind of see first when you go into Cedar is just like a typical kind of org pipeline view, like what you're used to seeing in your typical CRMs. Except me, as someone doing sales, I don't actually manage any of this information myself. So all of this is kind of managed by our agent based off of my playbook. And you basically get this like intelligence layer on top of every deal. So if, as an example, we go into Mastra's deal, you can basically see a couple things. So we have this like set of agents that are like running on top of every deal. Like an agent that's like giving me an overview of like the things I need to care about the most in this deal. Like an agent that's potentially saying like, hey, you might need to multi-thread in this deal if you're talking to someone who isn't a decision maker, certain things like this. And then you kind of get the ability to go like deeper into any deal, see like all of the things that have happened in that deal automatically managed for you, and let the agent kind of take care of updating your CRM and keeping all the data clean there. And then you can come and like ask any question here, like what were his main pain points? And then basically all our agents are both they have all the context of every single deal kind of in one place. And then they also know everything about the way that you kind of run your deals and can help you do things kind of according to that. So here's an example where it's going through all the meetings I've had with Josh and kind of pulling out his main pain points around deal management. Another thing that to kind of like go deeper into like the data layer that I think kind of powers a lot of the more powerful things we can do is essentially, like I mentioned, as you're just like going about your deals, we're like basically extracting all of this like intelligence around like what it is that you do, what your product does, who are you selling to, what are the main objections that you get, all of this like sales intelligence and product intelligence, so that you don't have to sit there and like compile kind of all of these playbooks for our agents to be able to do things for you. So an example of like what we can do with this is now that like my agent like knows everything about our product, right? And like it knows everything about who we're selling to, I can just come in and say something like, I want to build a Cedar one-pager. Like I just want this piece of collateral because like I need to start sending it to prospects kind of after that first meeting or whatever it is. And so what the agent's gonna do here is it's basically gonna like go through with me, say interactive design mode, and it's going to help me build the branding. It's gonna look into this like knowledge base for things like, what is it that my product does? Like how do we position? Like how do we quantify the ROI of the product and all of these things? So it's kind of gonna go through and start doing some of that and taking me through that. And let's see, this is the content plan. Here it'll generate like style previews to basically tell me like how I want to brand it. I did pull up a few examples just so we don't maybe have to wait for it to go all the way through it. But as an example, this is actually a custom site or deck that it built for our deal with Mastra, where it basically went through. It took kind of all of the pain points that we heard from Mastra and put it together in this like custom deck that just like kind of goes through our features, goes through what that person cares about the most, the ROI that we hear, all of these different things. And like all of this is just super customized. It even knows that we use Mastra. So it says Cedar's agents run on Mastra's primitives. But essentially like all of this is like super customized to each deal that we're working and everything about our product and the way that we write and these types of things. Another example is pager that I started generating there. I kind of pre-generated one, but it's basically pulling out information like, hey, like I said I wanted to generate this for sales leaders. So it's pulling out things like, hey, the top 25% of your reps close 60 to 70% of your revenue. Like that's the gap that we handle. And like, this is how we do it. These are kind of the steps. This is the ROI that we've hit. And then like it linked my Calendly or whatever it is. So, and then it kind of the way that our agent does all of these things is like really interactive, kind of helping you shape your sales process the way that you want. And the kind of last thing I'll show is we did start and we still are like a full email client where you can essentially just like, if you hate email, that's kind of like the first pain point that we started with. So every single like thread that you go into. If we can find a good example.
You're speaking my
We'll be able to like pull up the deal on the right, and then
yeah, you're speaking my language when you said if you hate email, because that you just described me.
you hate email.
I hate
yeah, I
email.
mean, like that's kind of yeah, like I guess the way that we play into email is like if you want an email client that knows everything about the way that you write emails out of the box and basically tells you what you need to care about for your inbox so you don't have to look at everything, categorizes things and organizes them. That's kind of actually how we started, and that's one of our email quality is actually still one of the best things about our product that users will share with us. So yeah, that's kind of a high level. I'd love to hear any questions if you want me to go deeper into anything on the technical side or the product side. Would love to answer anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, and I hadn't seen, we've obviously talked quite a bit in the past, but I haven't seen like the ability to build deck assets or whatever to send to customers.
That's
I think
really cool.
that is something that I used to do, and I still do a lot of product interviews that often end up being sales calls, right? Because you don't know what, typically we start talking with folks who are building with Mastra, and oftentimes they need other stuff that we have. So I would very frequently have a call where I do some discovery, and then we'd have a follow-up call where I basically would build a customized deck for that their use case. And that was kind of tedious, right? And of course, you can reuse templates, but I still had to manually go in and fill in a lot of information. So even that, little bit of time saved each time, where you're saving 15 to 30 minutes before and after meetings, I think is pretty incredible. That alone. Abby, you have any questions? Otherwise, I have some technical ones too.
Oh, I'm more of a comment. Like, last time you guys were on the show, Cedar was agentic front end framework, and so pivoted again. And I think this is really cool. It takes everything that you've been building so far, and then applying it to something that's very needed. So, I just want to say congrats. It's awesome to see the growth.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think no, I appreciate that. We actually took basically we had this horizontal open source solution, and we just basically verticalized and applied the same thing. All of this uses the same, all of us stuff from our previous pivot are using this product, but kind of just only for us. And I feel like something we learned kind of working in a horizontal way was very much how do we build the best AI native experience for users that's intuitive and actually because we're kind of working with people who, like what Shane said, it's you're trying to save 15 minutes and focus every here and there throughout your day. And so what we're optimizing for is how do we help you execute as fast and as effective as possible. So that's actually an interesting throwback to last time we were on this webinar.
Yeah. So we do have a question from the chat. So Sebastian asks, is this laser focused on the deal pipeline, or do you plan to expand on these primitives to other fields and business processes?
That's actually a really good question, and actually very core to kind of the configuration of our product. So I'll show this one screen where essentially the way that our product works is we're actually fully horizontal, but we're verticalized in that we're selling specifically to sales. But every event that goes through our product, so every email, every meeting, everything gets categorized, and then it gets executed on using your playbooks that are for that category. So what that means is the one we focus on most is deals, and that is in a sales context, right? But for example, I have one that's event partnerships, and I also use it for customer success and things like this. And we have customers that use it for fundraising and all of these types of things. So actually the product itself is fully horizontal, but we're just verticalized for GTM purposes and kind of for focus in that way. But
And one more question from Sebastian. If it's not too technical, will there be a headless API and some syntax sugar around tool calls to build complex human-in-the-loop UI?
as in on our roadmap of things we're building, or do you mean inside the product?
Yeah, Sebastian, you might need to provide some more context there. I'm assuming on your roadmap, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll wait and see if Sebastian
if I'm
comes
understanding
back.
the question correct.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. if I'm understanding the question correctly, kind of like a headless entry point to our outputs. We've had customers ask us for that before, which is like, hey, can I plug this as an MCP into Claude? Can I text it over Slack? Can I text it over iMessage? The MCP is actually one that we're working on right now. The texting over iMessage is something we're working on soon, where like if you want any context of like what is it I have to do today, or what's going on in this deal, or like what is like waiting on me, whatever it is, you can just like text Cedar and it'll be able to pull that information for you.
Yeah, I could see a really comprehensive, for me, I would love to do it in Slack, right? But I think for everyone else, maybe it's text, Telegram, whatever, wherever they go is their natural place to send messages. But I could definitely see that being a use case where
sure.
I would definitely want it to come into Slack or whatever and be able to just pop in a quick question, and then of course oftentimes go to the dashboard, but maybe not every time.
Yeah, exactly. Like how do we bring things to you when you need them so that we're using your framework for internal purposes. Yeah, so we actually used to be a horizontal solution for all of the front end pieces, but then we verticalized and now we just use it internally. I mean, the repo is still public, it's still open if anyone wants to take a look. We haven't maintained it externally, but it's fully production ready there. So essentially, like it's kind of was honestly built optimized a little bit for Mastra. Because that's what we are building on, which is like how can we bring kind of like all the powerful work that agents are doing in the back end and like bring super AI native front end experiences that people can interact with to kind of unlock all of that and like trigger it where it fits into their workflow the most.
Could you go back to the graph view? I wanted to look at that again.
Yeah, anytime I see a graph view and immediately want to double click on that or zoom into it, because you see a graph view and you're like, oh, this is
So what is
graph.
this representing? Is this just a knowledge base?
It's a lot of different things. So one is knowledge base, which is like, hey, like honestly, the best knowledge base for any product is the way that it's pitched in sales calls. So like from all of your meetings where you're pitching your product, like we can actually figure out what your product does pretty well. That's one piece of it. The other piece is, for example, mapping your sales process. So like the way that we can figure out how you do things and automate them the way that you would do them is like for all of your deals, like you usually do probably the same set of things, right? Where you're like, maybe after the first meeting, I send like a value deck. And then after like whatever, I like do all these things. And then maybe after I sign them, I send an order form, right? So it's like, how do we map your sales process from your previous and ongoing deals so that we can actually do things the way that you would, rather than these generic solutions that come with a lot of just general like Claude or ChatGPT workflows. So that's one thing. Another thing is like more intelligence from calls. So like, what are the objections that are coming up? How are you handling them that works, and how are you handling them that doesn't work? And like kind of a lot of these, like who are your competitors, and like how do you position against them? Like how are you positioning pricing? Like all of this intelligence that comes from you leading calls and running deals that comes through our system.
Well, what about the multi-threading use case where you have to talk to like 5 different people? Are they reflected on a graph like this that you talk to them, or they exist, like the people side?
So the multi-threading agent that we have just runs like in the context of every specific deal. And basically it's an agent that's like fully configurable. I think I have an example of one recently, but it'll basically say like my multi-threading agent is watching out for deals where I'm talking to someone who isn't a decision maker and it's single threaded. And because we know everything about that deal kind of in one place, then what it'll do is like if one of those things triggered to be true and it was a good fit, it'll go and do the research it needs to tell me who I need to reach out to, and even draft like an intro email that like I can send out. So that's kind of like a per deal agent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. That's really cool. So who's using this right now
Thank you.
besides us?
Yeah, so we're working with, I would say there's like 2 main ICPs we're working with right now. One is AEs at like larger companies, so we're working with companies like Reptile, Mitlify, Cursor, and then one is like, and where I actually think we're seeing like very, very strong product fit is like teams that have like maybe just founder-led sales or 1 to 2 sales hires, where like they're really just like don't have the time to put together all of these playbooks, and like things are super busy because they're like very lean, and we kind of will like come in and just like take a lot of that lift from them while keeping the deals close to them. And so that's kind of what I would say we've been focusing on a lot more recently. And I think like a lot of the like intelligence layer works really well with founders who are like actually still improving at sales, right? So it's like, how can we close the loop of like, maybe you lost this deal, like let's debrief it and then like put that intelligence into your next deal to make sure that like you didn't lose it for the same reason or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Sick.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on the webinar and letting me share some about Cedar. I'll drop my calendar link in the chat in case anyone's interested in chatting.
Yeah, do that, and
Yeah,
also
I really appreciate your guys' time.
Yeah, and let's also, what's the best way for people if they're just, we have a lot of people that listen to the show afterwards. If they're not watching the screen right now, what's the best way for them to go? Is it cedarcopilot.com?
Yes, cedarcopilot.com. Isabelle at cedarcopilot.com. Isabelle from Cedar on LinkedIn. Probably any of those would work well. Yeah, I don't know if I can actually. Oh, I can drop it. But yeah, thanks so much for your guys' time. And,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Isabelle.
enjoy the rest
And
of the webinar.
Yeah, tell Jesse we said what up.
Thanks for having me. For sure. I'm sure he says what up back.
all right, see you, Isabelle.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Dude, did you subscribe?
Dude, I host the show. Did you subscribe?
Did you subscribe?
Subscribe to Agents Hour every Monday, noon Pacific.
Agents Hour here to stay. Tune in Mondays, make your day. From the news to the problem solved. AI world, get involved.
All right.
That was cool.
That was cool. Yeah, it's cool to see the progress. We're starting to use it. We're really liking it. So I thought, it's a good showcase for what people are building on top of Mastra, but also just the types of agents that more broadly people are starting to build, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we probably should just move right along. We got a jam-packed AI news show, like always. So why don't we get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's do the news. All right, welcome to Agents Hour. If you're just tuning in, it is Monday, May 18th, and we're here for the news. So it's, like every week, there's some drama. Maybe
Game of Thrones beat Thronesin', dude. Today is a day of infamy.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and pull up the screen, and we will do the thing that we do every week, where we talk about the drama, we talk about what's happening, and we keep you informed if you're listening. This was a big one. Breaking. This actually came out maybe an hour or so before we got on live with the show. The jury rejects Musk's lawsuit against OpenAI. So this is from the New York Times. It says, breaking news. A jury rejected Elon Musk's lawsuit accusing OpenAI of putting commercial gain over the public good. Jurors decided his claims were barred by the statute of limitations. And it sounds like he is going to appeal, or has at least come out and said that he's going to appeal. So it's not done. It's just, OpenAI has won this round.
Yeah. There was some evidence on Elon's side of trying to be commercial as well, which probably was taken into evidence. Him not being there for closing statements probably impacted some sentiments there. He was in China with President Trump, so he wasn't there. But yeah, there is some good evidence about, a couple pieces of evidence I thought were really interesting. One, he did want it to make it a commercial thing, so him coming now saying it should be for, charity is kind of does not help his case. Second thing is he is running a competitor, XAI, so that also clouds the how you view this thing. And XAI models have been quote unquote distilled from OpenAI, which is also not a good look for a legal battle here. And if anyone doesn't know, all Elon is asking for is a simple, small $134 billion in retribution or something. So yeah, this first fight goes to OpenAI. We'll see what happens next.
Yeah, and the story's not done. You know, it is. It's going to be ongoing for probably a few more years, I would imagine, before this
Yeah.
thing's completely put to rest, because they're competitors, right? And now,
Yeah.
last week we talked about Elon Musk and Dario's alliance. You know, the enemy of your enemy is my friend, so they're friends now, and you know, it's a Game of Thrones.
It's Game of Thrones.
So this came out. There's a tweet by Ivan from Daytona. A cloud built specifically for agents is coming. It will have web search, sandboxes, databases, storage, plus all the primitives. Hopefully, it will be the answer to the unpredictable demand spikes brought on by agents. It'll look more like Stripe than AWS. OpenAI wants to build it. Vercel wants to build it. We want to build it. We, as in Daytona, if you're Ivan. It's the next addition to the stack and one of the biggest prizes in infra right now. And I've also saw a bunch of comments. Isn't this Cloudflare? You know, and Cloudflare folks chiming in saying, we already have this. What do you think?
Isn't this Mastra?
I kind of looked at it and I was like, hey, this sounds like what we're building too.
It's exactly
So
what we're building.
everyone's trying to build this. I think for the most part, though, he's right. You know,
Yeah,
and there's not going to be just one winner, but there's not going to be 10 either.
exactly.
And so I think it's there's a lot of people that want to build, you know, what is this verticalized agent platform that can have all the things you need to build an AI. And I think I do think it's interesting that Ivan says it'll look more like Stripe than AWS, because I think that is the one point that I think people will be on one side or the other on.
Yeah.
Because Stripe's just an API, right? That's the beauty about Stripe is you just plug it in. You have, of course, you can configure it, you can make changes, but at the end of the day, you're kind of just getting a payment API.
Yeah.
AWS is like a configurable set of infra primitives that you will have to wire together and is very much manually set up. So what side is this platform going to look more like Stripe? Is it going to look more like AWS? Will there be multiple flavors of it? That's what I think I'm less confident in.
Yeah, same. I mean, the infra companies want it to be more like AWS, right? They don't have to change as much in their tech stack. But I think people coming into this field would want a Stripe because you don't have to care about how things actually work. You know, it just works. And I think that's where most people will start coming into.
Yeah.
What do you
Everything
think?
just works together, less
Yeah.
configuration. Everything ties together nicely. Yeah, we'll see. I think overall, though, the sentiment is I think a lot of people agree that this is going to exist. It's just a matter of who's going to win it. I thought this was interesting. So this is from, I believe it was Mercury, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I just thought it was interesting because of the name. They
Agent
have,
birthing.
and it must have been a launch week last week, agent birthing. But if you do watch the video, it's a really cool agent creation API or agent creation UI. There's a ton of interest around people just building these different agent builder type interfaces. I think this one's a pretty cool one. So if you're building some kind of agent builder and you want some inspiration, I think you could probably learn some things from this.
I think this dude's going to owe us coffee soon, though.
Soon enough. So Anthropic acquires Stainless. So this is from Anthropic's X account. Anthropic is acquiring Stainless API, an SDK and MCP server platform that has powered every Anthropic SDK since the earliest days of our API.
Well, I'm happy for them. Friends of Mastra getting acquired. So that's good.
Yeah, because they spoke at TSAI just
And sponsored.
Yes, they sponsored TSAI. So congrats to you, Stainless. Thanks for you probably knew this was already in in flight last month when you spoke at the conference. We appreciate that you were there. This is cool. It's also just more and more consolidation that we're seeing, right? It's OpenAI's buying these, different things. Anthropic starting to make acquisitions. There are many. It seems like Anthropic is much more into buying like developer tools. Right? With Bun, with now Stainless, it's like developer tools that they use internally. So if it's something that the team is using, it seems like you're on their acquisition list. OpenAI is a little bit more interesting with some of their acquisitions, but both are playing the game.
Yeah, Stainless is a great product too. So good for them. Good for the founders.
So let's talk about some more Anthropic news. So Claude Agent SDK billing changes. So starting June 15th, this comes from Claude Devs on X. Starting on June 15th, paid Claude plans can claim a dedicated monthly credit for programmatic usage. This credit covers usage of Claude Agent SDK, Claude-P, Claude Code GitHub Actions, and third-party apps built on the Agent SDK. What do you think?
I'm just sick of this roller coaster, dude. Like, have you noticed that none of these pricing tweets are coming from actual people anymore because they get too roasted and probably get death threats and shit?
Yeah.
And, now they have the Twitter account letting everybody down.
And so I love how they position this like it's a new feature. This isn't a new feature. If you're a dev, this is actually probably bad for you because you're using a tool that now you're not going to be able to use your Claude subscription with. You're building, it's nice that there's clarity, I guess. They've finally gave a little clarity on what works. Although I'm pretty sure they said it works with Claude Code and Claude Agent SDK. That was the whole thing. Now they're going back on that.
Yeah.
Now they're saying, actually, we'll give you this other dedicated monthly credit, which you're going to burn through very quickly.
Yes.
And then you're going to have to keep paying them more, which is totally within their right to do. I don't have any problem with Anthropic trying to make money. That's the job of any business. You got to make money. I think they have handled this situation pretty poorly with going back and forth, whether it was because of compute constraints or whatever. It has definitely been murky if you're building on top of this. So, we have friends who have built tools that integrate in with Claude in different ways. We have Mastra Code. Of course, we do.
Yeah.
Friend of the show from Conductor, even Superset, is a little different, but still like building on top of Claude Code or CLI, right? So these different things you have to always, every one of them's wondering, is my use okay or not?
Yeah.
Can my users use their max plan with this or not? And there was just not a lot of clarity there.
And dude, what does third-party apps built on Agent SDK? Isn't that all apps built on the Agent SDK would be considered third-party?
Yeah.
So like, what does that even mean? Claude-P is a big hit. If you want to do programmatic access on Claude, now you can't. You have to do interactive REPL. What are they doing, dude?
That's the big one. That's like you're using the Claude CLI.
Yeah.
Right? You're actually using the CLI, and you can't use your subscription with the CLI. You can only use it in interactive mode with.
It's because they can't control us from outside of the TUI, which is why they need to do all these things. They can't control what we do when we do -P, what apps we're building, etc. So they want us just to be in Claude Code, and that's it, Yeah. It's just funny now that Claude devs are the ones telling us instead of Tarek or Boris or whoever, because I bet you if they did it, they would have got roasted hard. I'm sure. These replies already roasted them again.
Yeah, I'm loving the chat here. We have, Carlos saying, this is pushing us more and more to Codex. Sebastian saying, Claude tries to prove really hard that not every publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Theo gets in here and says, I can't help but feel personally burned by Claude Code changes announced today. We put so much work into wrapping the atrocious Claude Agent SDK in T3 code. It was the only path. It was the only path they supported, so we made it work. It was hell. Now our users are getting their rate limits cut by 40x, despite us doing everything right. I listened to the Claude Code team. I had my issues with their direction, but I trusted them and took them at their word. I will never make that mistake again. Until we see significant change, it is safe to assume any statement from an Anthropic employee is a lie on a timer. The rug will be pulled no matter how many promises are made beforehand. This is like a scathing review.
Dude, this is a great burn though.
Yeah, it was a
Great
good burn.
from Theo.
Nice work, Theo. This is a good burn.
I mean, Theo was also telling people to quit Anthropic, right? Like last month.
I mean, Theo is very, you got to take what he says with a grain of salt now. He's very anti-Anthropic, maybe because of some of this, but still, I do think it's true, right? Like if you were building on top a product on top of it, it just wasn't clear what you could do. And then of course, Anthropic can change their policies. That's it within their right, but this sucks.
Yeah.
Then at the same time, they announced their weekly limits are increasing through July 13th. So you can't use it programmatically, but your weekly limits inside our, their ecosystem is going up. So if you are, a Claude Code user, congrats, you have more limits. You just have less flexibility in how you want to use those tokens. Also announced by Claude, fast mode for Claude Opus 4.7 is now available in the API and in Claude Code. So they're still shipping.
Don't use it. It costs a lot of money.
Does it?
Fast mode is very expensive. And
Good.
fast mode is the default for people who work at Anthropic. So they don't even see, right? They don't even see the subsidy in front of them. Like I was talking to some Anthropic folks. They're like, oh yeah, everybody uses fast mode. It is expensive, but not for us. It's like, all right, bro. All right.
This is, I guess, why the model labs are 3 months ahead of the rest of the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, they're all in fast mode. That's why.
They're all on fast mode. Yeah, I guess we don't get fast mode. So Claude for small business was introduced or announced last week. Claude is trying to win everything, and so now Claude has introduced additional tools targeted at small business. And I think this is actually a good launch as far as it's something that is needed. You have a lot of small businesses. I know a few owners of small businesses that could use something like this. They're using maybe ChatGPT. They're considering using other tools. They're not experts at AI, but they are interested in what it could do to help them be more efficient. So I do think that this, if they market it well and keep working at it, I think that they'll probably get some business out of this.
Yeah. It's pretty limited in what it does now, but it's actually pretty good for small business. I would say you can do payroll planning, you could do end of month accounting, HubSpot marketing campaigns, and some other shit. But like those are pretty good for a small business to do.
Yeah, I didn't really understand how this was that much different than just Cowork. I think it's just more ready to use workflows that come with it, a little bit more connectors that are just pre-configured.
Yeah.
So it does feel like an extension on Cowork a bit, just targeted more for small businesses and kind of the connectors or the integrations that they would need.
Yeah, maybe all roads lead to Cowork, even if you start here.
Yeah, I think so, at least for now. ChatGPT didn't want to let Anthropic be the only game in town, so they announced a preview for pro users, a new personal finance experience in ChatGPT. Pro users in the US can securely connect financial accounts, see where their money is going, and ask questions based on the information they choose to connect. Your full financial picture now in ChatGPT.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
These guys are coming. They're just too. It's just too obvious.
Yeah, they're just going at each other.
Yeah.
And someone on the team did try this. Didn't have good things to say. Said it was very limiting and it didn't answer the questions very well the first time. Had to be really guided. So if you've ever used an agent and you kind of had to really reiterate exactly what you wanted, that was his experience with this the first time. Again, I'm sure they'll make it better. I'm sure that was, depending on what you ask, all of that, all those caveats aside, seems like it's they're going in a lot of the same directions that Anthropic is. All right, so OpenClaw is now using Codex. So, this came out, when was this? On May 14th. and says your ChatGPT subscription now powers an OpenClaw agent that genuinely feels magical to talk to. So OpenClaw is now running on top of the Codex harness by default. In handling the inner loop to OpenAI's native Codex harness, we eliminated the conflicting instructions and duplicate tools that used to make the model hesitate. So does this mean, like, because they were using Pi before, right? Are they still using that? Is this, like, I didn't look into it enough to know, but I am curious.
They're using Codex harness for the inner workings and Pi TUI for the TUI.
Interesting.
Yeah, before it was like I wouldn't say like it was like kind of like a hodgepodge harness put together. But now that they don't have to care about Anthropic as much and all that, you could just use Codex and focuses the whole product on that thing.
And we talked about this in the intro, but if you're just joining us or just watching the news, Peter Steinberger had a post that came out after he had announced his some UI that contained his AI spend, where he spends 1.3 million in the last 30 days on just tokens. And so Peter responded, people are freaking out over my AI spend, what nobody sees. Part of what excites me so much about working on OpenClaw is that I'm trying to answer the question, how would we build software in the future if tokens don't matter? So we constantly run 100 codexes in the cloud, reviewing every PR, every issue. If a fix on main lands, Claw Sweeper will eventually find that 6-month-old issue and close it with an exact reference. We run codex on every commit to review for security issues. We run codex to deduplicate issues and find clusters and send reports for the most pressing issues. We have agents that recreate complex setups, spin up ephemeral crabbox.sh machines, log into Telegram, make a video, and post before and after fix on the PR. There's Codex that watches new issues, and if it fits our documented vision well, automatically creates a PR of it. We have a Codex running that scans comments for spam and blocks people. I hope people aren't playing drinking games at home for every time I say Codex, because he says Codex about 100 times in this post.
Drunk.
A lot of Codex. He is very, very much on the Codex bandwagon now, as you'd expect, now that he's at OpenAI. But anyways, 1.3 million in the last month in tokens just for OpenClaw, which is wild.
But I guess we don't know if it's subsidized. Probably is, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, if he's on a OpenAI Max plan.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they probably just gave him an API key and said, have at it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, here you go, have at it, do your thing, whatever you need. All right, let's talk about Devin in Cognition. So this came out kind of early last week, and we use Devin a bit internally. It's a cool product. You know, we don't use it for everything, but we do use it for PRs here and there. Some of the members of our team really do like it. And apparently they're at a $445 million run rate with
Which is
usage
wild.
doubling every 8 weeks. So that's wild.
I remember when Devin was a joke.
Yeah,
And now it's not.
I remember in YC that there were people joking that, oh, we could pay $500 a month for Devin and we don't have to hire an engineer. And obviously back then it was
Not good.
pretty bad. But kudos to them. They've been continue to ship, continue to make the product better. And now I can say it's a pretty good product right now.
Yeah, I think it's great.
So, yeah, sometimes you just got to keep shipping.
It's expensive, though.
Yep, that it is. Introducing the Notion Developer Platform. This came out last week on May 13th. New building blocks that help you and your coding agents sync any data source, build any tool, and orchestrate any agent. So it's essentially allowing, from what I've seen, you to basically build your own agents within Notion's ecosystem. Which I do think we'll see more, especially more platforms kind of allow you to do this.
Yeah. They had to do it, right? Because one, Notion was made for humans. Notion block format is not that great for agents. So, if Markdown or HTML or whatever. So, but now if you can, be within Notion, I guess you have an upper hand if all your knowledge is there.
Yeah, and so a little bit more information. The Notion CLI in your terminal. There's workers. You can run code on Notion's infra, database sync, so you can sync any data source into Notion. Agent tools, so you can build workflows, webhook triggers, external agents API, bring any agent into Notion, and then Notion's has their own agents SDK, so you can use Notion agents anywhere. And then it says, and soon you won't need to be a developer to build on Notion. Your agent will be one for you. So I think we'll see. We're seeing a lot of people just trying to really become the everything platform.
Yeah.
Everyone's
linear.
Yeah, linear, Notion. I mean, linear is definitely in some ways competing with a lot of these other platforms that are more dev toolsy, right? Linear was a product tool, and now it's becoming a developer tool, or wants to be. Notion is very much becoming the same thing. If you're watching the show earlier, we talked about supply chain attacks. TanStack had a supply chain attack last week. You probably all saw it. There was an attack. They called it a mini Shah Halud. And essentially, it got in and impacted a bunch of dependencies. A ton of NPM packages were affected. It's this supply chain attacks are seeming to be more and more common these days. As if you did watch the earlier part, as Ismail said, it's because the human is the weak point, right? You can find one person to click on one email or get phished in some very creative way, and then the whole thing can be that the attack itself can be very simple if you can just get through that.
I met a team this week in New York who was impacted by this, but not everyone had reinstalled. There's just one engineer updated his TanStack dependencies and essentially was vulnerable. And one thing that I kind of saw from them is like secret rotation is not necessarily like a easily solved problem right now. Everyone has secrets across so many different platforms, and to rotate them, they spent the whole day rotating at things and redeploying and rotating. It's quite expensive of a process. So there should be companies that are trying to solve this problem, hopefully.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that, but I think there's ways.
Yeah.
All right. Friends at CodeRabbit announced Project Atlas last week. It's the first AI native code review interface. Try it in your PRs today. Essentially what it is you can kind of think of it as an IDE for code reviews. It's kind of how it was positioned when I saw it. And ultimately, I think this is a big problem. I think code reviews are a big bottleneck. If code generation is better and you can get AI to review the code, but you as a human still want to have keep some pulse on what's changing, you still do need a human review. And now humans are the bottleneck to getting code through. And so I do think the GitHub code review interface, the PR review interface, has not changed for a decade, really. Yeah. It's the alphabetical list of file changes is not the way to review PRs, especially not larger PRs. And so I think there will be many more attempts to do this. I think CodeRabbit's, when I've played around with it, it's pretty cool. Yeah. I think they're still making a lot of improvements and a lot of changes. I'd try it out if I were you, but I thought it's a good attempt, and I'm going to keep playing around with it and providing feedback to the team over there.
Yeah, we could, we have so many PRs coming in, and one, we recently require issues with PRs now, which help you focus intent. But if you don't have a backing issue and you're just reviewing a PR from a stranger, that's, maybe it wasn't part of your roadmap or some bug that was there, it's super hard to just review in the way that GitHub wants. But I was trying out CodeRabbit, and the way they prioritize the change set and what to look at is pretty unique. I think people will like it. Y'all should try it out.
We should get Eric to come on the show and demo it. Yeah.
I'm going to send him a message right now.
Yeah, go send him if you don't send him a text, I'll send him a text. Yeah, we should see a live demo here, because I think I agree this is a problem. Someone has to solve it. I think more than one person's going to try. I think this is the first real reputable company trying, there's a lot of startups trying to solve it, and kudos to them. I think there's some good tools out there, but this is, a little bit larger company putting a lot of stock into it, trying to solve the problem. And I think it's a problem that needs to be solved, or at least improved. Continuing on in the code review world, so Bullfrog is an open source CodeRabbit alternative that runs on GitHub Actions. So this got a lot of attention last week. So if you are looking for an open source alternative, maybe check it out. All right, let's talk about cloud coding agents. So Cursor had an announcement last week. It said starting today, you can run cloud agents inside fully configured development environments. Set them up the same way you'd set up a laptop for an engineer. Cloned repos, installed dependencies, and toolchain credentials. And another announcement from Cursor. Cursor is now available in Microsoft Teams. So you can mention @Cursor in any channel and delegate tasks to an agent, or pull information into Cursor, or from Cursor into Teams. So Cursor is shipping some things. OpenAI has released Codex in the ChatGPT mobile app. So now you can spin up basically coding agents from the mobile app on the go. So this has been one that, people have been asking about for a long time.
Yep.
OpenAI is even shipping on Saturdays. So, Thibault had to announce, I don't know why we ship on Saturdays now, but there's a bunch of nice improvements to Codex. So keyboard shortcuts and a whole bunch of other things if you want to go and see his post about what they released on Saturday. But shipping on the weekends, I guess, is the new thing.
996.
996 life, I guess. Introducing code intelligence from Linear. So you can give Linear Agent controlled access to your code base and turn repositories into shared product context your whole team can use. So essentially, Linear now wants you to give them access to your code, and then that can ideally play into the issues and everything that's created, help you kind of organize and build context around not just your product roadmap and your issues, but also the code that is coming out of it.
Curious, Linear and Notion are going to be just head-to-head enemies, in this new world.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're coming at it from different angles, but they're going to end up in similar places, for sure. I feel like we've been talking about the forward deployed engineer movement for a long time. So Aaron Levy had a really kind of pretty viral post about that forward deployed engineers or equivalent are about to become one of the most in-demand jobs in tech and one of the most important functions for AI rollouts. Deploying agents is far more technical of a task than most people realize, often far more involved than deploying software. Software generally works the same way every time, and generally for the past few decades has been updated versions of an existing technology or concept. With agents, you're actually deploying the equivalent of work output within the enterprise. The customer is effectively using you as a professional services provider for a task, which they expect to get solved nearly end to end now. This means you need to actually deeply understand the business process as a vendor and get the customer from current to the end state seamlessly. Companies need help figuring out which models will work best for their workflows. They need extensive evals set up often. They need change management support for workflows. They need to get their data set up for the agents and constant tuning of the agentic system for their processes. So, yeah, I actually agree with this. I think, this was kind of in result or a response to the fact that Google is going to recruit hundreds of engineers to assist clients in embracing its AI models. So
you can't self-serve this stuff, I guess,
That's what they're arguing, at least.
Dude, I met a kid from Stanford. He just graduated. I asked him what he wanted to do for a job, and he said he wanted to be an FDE. I'm not even joking. I was like, damn, where are we?
The funny thing is, it's just like FDE is the new consultant, right?
Yep.
It's just, you are technical, you know how to use these AI tools. You're going to go into a business that doesn't have the expertise that you have, and you're going to help, it's wild that that's the world we live in.
Yeah, and you don't have to work at, stupid ass McKinsey or Accenture or something.
You can work for OpenAI or Google or Anthropic and be an FDE there. So this came out last week. Apparently, if you are following the MCP spec, They're thinking of deprecating sampling, logging, and roots in MCP. Let me know if you
Hallelujah.
rely on these. It's about time. No one's using those as far as I can ever see. I've never seen anyone say, oh, we really need roots, MCP. No, haven't ever heard it. Never came up on a call. Sampling, no. Logging, no. Elicitation, once or twice. But none, yeah. It's probably a long time coming. Boppy raised a $50 million Series B to make everyday calls extraordinary. Thinking Machines had an announcement last week. It says, people talk, listen, watch, think, and collaborate at the same time, in real time. We've designed an AI that works with people the same way. We shared our approach, early results, and a quick look at our model in action. So Thinking Machines finally came out with the model. I watched the demo. It's pretty cool. It's basically can see when someone comes on the screen, it can interact with them. So it's it feels a bit more real. And so I encourage you to check out the demo. It is pretty cool.
They finally did something.
It's been a long time coming. All right, so we have to talk about this. I know, producer Jan is in our ear saying we're going way too long in this news segment, but that's okay. He's stuck with us, so we're going to keep going. David Kramer from Sentry says vendor-specific chatbots are broken by design. That means the Sentry agent, the Linear agent, and others you might have in Slack. They are fine for some point situations. They are nice to get started with, but agents with generalized access outperform them in every scenario. All right. There's a whole bunch more we can go into here, but what do you think?
I would
Is
agree.
it vertical specific chatbots? Are they broken? Are more general purpose agents that have access across systems better? What are your thoughts, Abi?
I mean, I would agree. The more powerful the agent is, and the more general it can be with a very strong model, it'll probably do very well. But the vendor specific ones, usually, we live in a world where systems are crossing boundaries with each other. So if you're just talking to one thing, you're going to need to map that somewhere else anyway, right? If you're using Sentry, for example, I need Sentry plus my code base plus my coding agent to actually get the job done, which I believe, Sentry wants to add those capabilities to the vendor-specific one. But I don't know. Rather just have an API from those systems instead of a chatbot.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the argument, is that rather than Linear developing their own agent and Sentry developing their own agent, if there's just an MCP or an API or a CLI that you can tie your code agent into, you can often get that cross context that you can't get unless you go into Linear now and connect your code base, connect all these systems, and now Linear becomes your centralized system. That's the only way you can get enough context. And so I do think that more and more, some of these solutions are just going to need to provide really good access to their information, so your coding agent or your external agent can cross all these different boundaries.
Yeah. And we are going to have David on the show in a couple weeks, probably. So
yeah, we'll talk about it.
Talk about it then.
Carlos did mention, when the thinking machines deserves a deeper talk. Not the tech specifically, but the real-time aspect and omnichannel as default. I do think we need to spend more time on that. Maybe that's a future conversation topic, because there's a lot of things we can go into around like omnichannel rather than just chat, just voice. I do think it's an important turning point, assuming that the tech continues to improve in that area. All right, we got a whole bunch of quick hits. We're going to rapid fire through these. Replit announced parallel agents, so you can build faster by running up to 10 agents in parallel. Each agent gets its own copy of your app. They work on their own computer. They merge their work in agentically. Claude Code announced Agent View, one list of all your sessions available today as a research preview.
Who cares?
Kua Driver is a macOS driver that lets any agent drive any app in the background with true multiplayer and multi-cursor built in. That's kind of cool.
Tight.
Daybreak is announced by OpenAI. It's the frontier AI for cyber defenders. So it brings together the most capable OpenAI models, codecs, and our security partners to accelerate cyber defense and continuously secure software.
How much?
Files SDK was announced by Hayden and is a unified storage SDK for objects and blob backends. One small, honest API, web standards, I/O, and escape hatch when you need the native client. So 18 different providers for a files SDK. So this is pretty cool.
Yep. We're going to integrate with this.
Yeah, and it just makes sense. It's a nice unified, kind of a unified SDK for all these different storage backends. Lovable had some announcements. They introduced a new aesthetics update, so it's a whole new level of design and vibe coding, so it's trying to create better designed products. Lovable introduced skills, so you can add skills into Lovable. XAI announced an early beta of Grok Build, an agentic CLI for coding, building apps, and automating workflows is now available. So Grok is trying to get their CLI available and used for coding tasks. We'll see if the cursor acquisition ends up paying off in the long run. I feel like
I get my Grok Max plan.
Yeah, got to get Grok Max. Grok, if you're not Grok Maxing,
Yeah.
So live in DIA today, pull requests now have previews with real-time CI status, sharper metadata, conflict resolution, comment triage. So if you are a DIA user, Copilot Kit announced their enterprise intelligence platform. So it's a self-hosted solution for teams taking agentic applications to production on any platform with confidence. So congrats to Copilot Kit on the fundraise, on the enterprise intelligence platform. Friends of Mastra over at Copilot Kit. So congrats to you. Visual Studio Code announced that you can, they're calling it agents. You can orchestrate tasks across projects in the agents window. It's a preview. So I heard someone say it's kind of like a superset or conductor within Visual Studio Code itself. I don't know if people are still using Visual Studio Code. I think some people are. Maybe this is interesting to you. There's a research paper on Lighthouse Attention, which is basically decreases costs of pre-training for LLMs based on how it kind of handles the attention mechanism. Not going to go into this. You can read the whole paper if you're interested and you like more deep dives, but it basically is a way to decrease training costs on long context or really large context items. And this was interesting, but Bun's Rust rewrite has been merged. You can now use the Rust version of Bun. All right. For faster Bun usage.
Yeah, they're probably using fast mode. So good for them.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the show. Please make sure, if you are not already subscribed on YouTube, go to Mastra-AI on YouTube. Follow us on X at Mastra. You can follow me. I'm at SMThomas3. Or follow Abi at AbiIyer on X. That is the news for the week, dude.
Yeah, dude. Man, the Game of Thrones, dude. Every week, there's some shit going on. It was a good show.
It was a good show. It was fun. I'm excited to hang out in a couple days.
Yep.
That's going to be a good time. Excited to chat with you all again if you're watching next week. And if you aren't, we often ask for this. Go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Only the 5 stars. If you want to give us 4 stars or below, just find something else to do with your time. That's okay. We still appreciate you. Just don't give us a review. We do like those 5-star reviews, though. They help others like yourself find the show.
Yeah. And we'd like to thank, once again, Morning Brew for allowing me to be in the studio. If you don't know about Morning Brew, you can check out their shows on YouTube. They have a newsletter, and they have a really, really awesome business podcast. So thank you once again, Morning Brew. And I'm sure next time we're in New York, we'll record here again.
Yes. Thanks, Morning Brew. Thanks to you if you're watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
This is Agents Hour.
Peace.
Yo, that show's a wrap. We were live in the zone. AI Agents Hour, Shane and Abby on the throne. Did you give us that review? Only if it's a 5. Jump on the tube, make sure to like and subscribe. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Get so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. Did you just drop in? Is this your first time? Make sure to follow us on X and go like and subscribe. Yeah, learn the principles and patterns in our books. The Mastra.ai site, give it a look. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Get so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. This is the end, we all wrapped up. Another showdown, another one coming up. AI Agents Hour's done, but the news doesn't cease. Shane and Abby, we out of here. Peace.